Other than the Civil War, it's the Vietnam War that is the most contentious in American history, causing the greatest divisions among people. We're not going to solve the problem of whether it was a bold attempt to stop communism or an arrogant over-display of American military might. Instead, we're going to concentrate on one of the most controversial programs within the Vietnam War, the CIA's Phoenix program. The Phoenix program was created by the Central Intelligence Agency and the Vietnamese government. Its purpose was to go after those who were supporting the Viet Cong in the hamlets, villages, and provinces of Vietnam. It would find them, it would interrogate some of them on the spot, it would interrogate others of them in prisons, it would eliminate some of them, and by eliminate I mean kill. This was effective, but it was brutal. We were fortunate to find someone with the courage to speak out now about this topic. This is going to be bloody and gory, and it may change your opinion of the way the American government operates at times.
We would go into a small village or hamlet, pick a few people at random, and shoot them in the village square just to get their attention. Then we would round up anyone that might be of importance and interrogate them. The idea was to find out who the Viet Cong cadre was and who was supporting them. Once we had that information, those still alive were forced into a building. The doors were barricaded and the building burned. Any who broke out were shot.
Why were you in Vietnam, and how did you get involved in Phoenix?
I'm not going to go a lot into what I was doing there or why. I was young. I was ignorant. I was working for a 3-letter agency and got asked to serve as an advisor to this thing called Phoenix. Its purpose was pretty straightforward. Identify the civilian support structure behind the Viet Cong, what we call the VCI, or Viet Cong infrastructure, and either convince them to rally to the government, capture them for interrogation, or eliminate them.
And by eliminate, you meant kill.
Yes.
Why are you talking about this now after 50 years?
I probably shouldn't be, but I'm dying and I want a record. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not entirely ashamed either. I'm going to talk about some missions, not always ones I was personally on, but ones I saw or knew about firsthand. That way, no one pins down who I am, but what I say. I saw it, I lived it, I believe the rest.
What exactly was your role in Phoenix?
Advisor, liaison, interface, pick a word. I was the middleman between the US government and the Vietnamese field teams. In my case, the PRUs, Provincial Reconnaissance Units. We had 2 big jobs. First, gather human intel mostly, but sometimes physical, infrastructure on people helping the VC. Second, use that intel to eliminate the support structure. That didn't always mean kill. Sometimes it meant turning people, getting them to rally. Sometimes we captured them. Sometimes we made sure they never helped anyone again. We also went after material, weapons caches, propaganda cells, cadre camps, anything physical that let the VC operate. But it was surgical. We weren't running combat operations. We were scalpel. The military was the sledgehammer.
So your targets were civilians?
Technically, yes. Practically, no. They weren't soldiers, but they sure as hell weren't innocent. These were the people who fed the VC, hid them, guided them to government supporter homes. The guy pointing out where the village chief sleeps so he can get assassinated is just as dangerous as the guy pulling the trigger. We went after district and village-level cadre, mostly. The province-level guys were usually too well protected. But when we took out someone high up, it sent a message. You back the wrong side. You pay for it.
What was the broader goal of Phoenix in the context of the war?
Simple. Break the enemy's spine. And that spine wasn't out in the jungle, it was in the villages. The VCI weren't just supporters, they were the nervous system. Take them out, and the VC couldn't operate. It also sent a psychological message. Support the VC, and you're not safe. no matter who or where you are.
But these were civilians. Weren't there legal or moral consequences of going after them?
That depends on where you were standing. The VC tortured and killed thousands of truly innocent civilians, maybe more. School teachers, clerks, local mayors who refused to cooperate. The truth is, both sides used terror. Phoenix was our version, and while I'd like to say it was, always clean and surgical, war doesn't work like that.
Did Phoenix work? Did it accomplish its goals?
In some ways, at the lowest levels where we had the best intel, it worked. We disrupted their networks, broke up support cells, but the big picture, not so much. The real problem was deeper than communism. Most of these people weren't communists. They were nationalists. They wanted us out just like they wanted the French out before us. Phoenix couldn't fix that. No amount of assassination or interrogation changes the fact that most of the countryside didn't want us there.
Was Phoenix based on earlier approaches?
Oh yeah, the VC had been doing this for decades. Terror wasn't new in Vietnam. The Viet Minh were assassinating pro-French officials way back in the 19th century. When the VC came along, they'd perfected it. Phoenix was just us trying to beat them at their own game. Problem was, they lived there. We didn't. They could disappear into the village. We left when the mission was done. That made us outsiders and made it easier for the VC to win back hearts and minds after we left.
Tell me about your first mission.
My first mission. We entered this village. First thing I saw was a Catholic priest kneeling by 3 bodies. A man, his wife, and their kid, 4 years old. They'd been tied to a stake. The chief and the boy, they'd been shot. Tore the kid to pieces, but the wife, God, she was pregnant, or had been. They cut her open, pulled the baby out, smashed its skull with a rifle butt. I threw up. A couple of us did. That was the moment we stopped seeing the VC as human. You see that, and you stop asking what's right or wrong. You just want to end all of them.
What did a more brutal Phoenix mission look like?
Most missions were pretty simple. We'd go in someplace and grab a guy for later. Interrogation. Sometimes as a fake, because he wanted to defect, but not be seen to defect. No one was hurt. Other missions, well, take one where we badly needed some immediate info on the VC. We'd pick up 3 people from the village. 1 we thought mattered, 2 who didn't. We'd start with the extras. Interrogator asks a question. Where'd you get the gun? Who's feeding the VC? Who leads the local VC cadre? Before the guy can answer, bang, brains on the wall. Then the next one. Same thing. By the time we get to the real target, he's crying, pissing himself, talking non-stop. He gets a bullet too eventually, but only after we get what we want. Not everything was bullets and blood. Some missions were psyops, psychological, warfare. One time, we heard a HUC VC unit was operating near a loyalist town. Couldn't risk deploying forces. Retaliation would be brutal. VC comes back, looking for the missing guy. Find him. Decide to leave the mountain. Quickly. Mission's success. No shots fired. Another time, different superstition. Vietnamese Buddhists believe the soul resides in the pineal gland, third eye. Phoenix teams would slip into VC-heavy villages at night, kill their target, and pin a calling card through the guy's forehead. Through the third eye, you see. Sometimes we didn't even kill, just left drawings of the all-seeing eye all over the bakes. Village. They never saw us there. When they woke up and saw the eyes, they'd be terrified. Then there's the liver thing. In that sect, if your liver's gone, your soul's trapped. Some PRU teams started cutting livers out of the eliminated, sometimes eating them, to send a message.
Why was Phoenix more successful at the village and hamlet level than at the province level?
Vietnam's structure was national, province, district, village, hamlet, but the real war was in the hamlets. First of all, most people lived there. The VC lived there, ate the same rice, married someone's sister. The Vietnamese army, they came from the cities, didn't know the people, didn't care about the people either. The government only showed up during the day. The VC were there at night. Most villagers didn't care about politics, they just wanted peace. But peace wasn't on offer. So they sided with whoever was present, trying to stay alive. Because the government, dating back to the French, didn't give a shit about the round villages. The VC ended up controlling huge areas of the country without firing a shot. They taxed the villages, ate their food, helped repair their hooches. Everyone knew them. Turning them in was like betraying your own brother-in-law. The higher up a VC cadre was, the more protected he was. Information was sparse, often hearsay. That is why Phoenix was most useful at the local level where you had real knowledge. Even if it came with personal vendettas, there were reasons things got ugly. First, the VC used torture too. Brutal stuff. Gutting wives, murdering kids. That created a cycle of revenge. Second, in villages, family ties ran deep. Go too far, and the populace shifts toward the other side. But most of the time, they just kept their heads down. Most people didn't care about communism or democracy. They cared about their rice, patties, so they'd smile at the VC by night, then the GVN by day, and neither side trusted them. The worst part, a lot of the crews we used were criminals, thugs from Saigon prisons, the worst of the worst, and they were loosely associated with the national police, which meant Geneva didn't apply. Add to that torture was a time-honored part Vietnamese law, and that Phoenix was technically a Vietnamese-run program. Nobody really checked what happened out in the jungle. Throw in some personal vendettas. That's how the worst stuff slipped through.
Phoenix was a covert operation, or series of operations, but covert doesn't mean lawless or brutal. How does the Geneva Convention fit into all of this? You mentioned it did not apply. Why did it not apply?
The Geneva Conventions were drawn up for a different kind of war. World War II, style not for something like Vietnam. They were great for uniformed armies fighting each other, civilians staying out of the way. It's tidy. They were outdated, still are.
But both Vietnams and the United States were signatories of the Geneva Convention, so why doesn't it apply?
Yes, they apply to wars between nations. But here's the catch. The Phoenix program targeted Viet Cong infrastructure, not uniformed soldiers, not prisoners of war. These were civilians helping the enemy. And Geneva doesn't say much about a government acting against its own civilian. As was seen with the Troubles in Ireland, it doesn't cover insurgency. Vietnam was nothing if not an insurgency, especially where the VC and their supporters were concerned. Phoenix thus operated the shadows of the law. That's the truth.
So when Phoenix went after the Viet Cong infrastructure, the VCI, the people supporting the Viet Cong, why were they considered combatants?
Not officially, but morally, functionally, they were more dangerous than some fighters. They moved weapons, fed information, managed logistics. Without them, the jungle, fighters would have dried up. Geneva doesn't make room for that third category. Combatant civilians, but they existed, and we knew it, and they were a problem.
Did Phoenix violate human rights?
Phoenix wasn't clean. No one pretends it was. But it wasn't My Lai either.
Let's talk about that. Was My Lai a Phoenix operation?
No, not even close. My Lai was a breakdown, a rage-fueled slaughter. Phoenix was calculated, systematic. My Lai was soldier snapping. Phoenix was command-approved, counterinsurgency. We picked names off a list, went in at midnight and captured some and killed others. Even at its most brutal, Phoenix was much more targeted.
With the end result, dead civilians, a lot of brutality, how is it not the same?
Intent, process, oversight however flawed. My Lai was chaos. Phoenix was policy. Evil policy? You could argue that. But it was structured, and that matters. One was an outburst and therefore largely uncontrollable. The other, a doctrine.
So let's dig a little bit into that doctrine. K. Barton Osborne testified that Phoenix-trained interrogators used horrific tortures, dowels driven into people's ears until they died, sexual abuses against both men and women, electric shocks before execution. That's pretty severe stuff. How does that fit in with Phoenix?
I read that, but I was there. I didn't see what he saw, but I don't doubt parts of it. Torture happened. Not everywhere, not always, but enough. Interrogation in that war was brutal, and sometimes it crossed the line into evil.
Speaking of evil, tell me about the Bien Hoa prison.
Bien Hoa was where boundaries didn't exist. July '68, a team of CIA shrinks set up shop. They cut open prisoners, implanted electrodes in their brains, tried to induce violence remotely. When it failed, the test subjects got a bullet in the forehead and their bodies burned. That wasn't intelligence. That was madness wearing a lab coat. Dr. Mengele would have been proud.
How did you handle Phoenix psychologically?
I compartmentalized. You had to. I was ordered never to speak of it, so I didn't. For 50 years, I locked it up. Was it necessary? Sometimes. Was it ugly? Always. Did it break? Some of us? You bet.
But some didn't break.
Yeah. Dave Grossman, in his book, On Killing, says 2 to 3% of people actually like killing. They're not psychopaths. They're just wired differently. Those were the ones who thrived in Phoenix. Sharp, deadly, loyal, and paradoxically, at least for the American soldiers, less violent back home than most people.
What about the rest?
They came home broken, not because they killed, but because they couldn't talk about it. Isolation does more damage than violence. Imagine living through hell and never being allowed to say a word about it. That's Phoenix. And assassination? It's even more intimate than combat. There's no distance. Just you and the target, looking into a guy's eyes as he dies, knowing you killed him. That rewires a man, steals some of his humanity, regardless of the circumstance.
Did you ever enjoy what you were doing?
I asked a friend that once. He said, not enjoy, it was orgasmic. I didn't go that far, but I understand. The intensity, it changes you. You don't come back the same.
Why speak out now?
Because I'm dying, and I need to let it out. Not because I'm ashamed, because I've been silent too long. I've seen some of your interviews with veterans. You seem to understand the weight of what we carry. That's rare.
Well, thank you. Did Phoenix end, or did it evolve?
Officially, it ended. But its spirit? Still here. You think bin Laden got due process? We go in, take out a target, strip his phones, and plan the next strike. That's Phoenix. only with drones now.
And the torture?
I've been waterboarded. That's torture. Not like tearing fingers off, but torture still. Would we do worse if a nuke was under Seattle? Don't lie to yourself. You'd do anything to stop it. So would I. Scale changes. Morality, that gets blurry real fast.
So are we in any danger that you are telling us these things?
Only if you believe your government could run assassination campaigns against civilians.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for the interview. Subscribe and like while you still can.